Hello and welcome back to our show. For the next couple of months, I will be using this platform to allow viewers to get to know and interact with our 2020 Democratic political candidates, as well as discuss current social issues. In order for us to make a difference and to be the change that we want to see in this world, we have to be educated and politically active. On the Hagir show, we are trying to raise awareness and we are trying to do our part. And today we have an amazing woman that I'm honored to have and be able to have her come here and talk with all of you. We have Shanna, and I am honored to have you, Shanna. Hello and welcome to the show. If you can introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them a little bit about you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this opportunity. It's been a tough weekend, so it's always nice to be able to kind of, I don't know, just tell my story a little bit, and connect with folks on things when maybe we're all feeling a really strong need for connection. So my name is Shanna Danielson. I am running for state senate here in District 31, which is parts of Cumberland and York counties, just across the river from Harrisburg. I am a music teacher by trade. I spent just under a decade teaching elementary and middle school band and general music in 3 different school districts around Pennsylvania. I'm a mom. I have a 6-year-old son who's in 1st grade. His name is Elliot. He's the light of my life. I am a gun violence prevention advocate. I've been working with Moms Demand Action for several years to try and stop needless violence and save lives. And I've been involved in politics for a few years because I just felt as a member of my community that I wasn't really being heard. It wasn't so much a desire to take charge, right? But I remember shortly after we bought our home here in Dillsburg, I found out that I had a female state representative and I was so excited, but then I got to know about her positions and I became much less excited because she didn't believe in any of the things that I believe in. And she honestly just didn't take my concerns seriously. So I ran against her in 2018. I ran for state house in Ruby Red, Northern York County. And we didn't win that race, but we did get a higher percentage of the vote than any non-Republican candidate ever had. And we activated thousands of folks in this district who finally felt like they had someone that they could talk to that felt the way they did. That campaign was exciting. It was very grassroots, very rough around the edges, but we did a lot of good work. It led me to do the Emerge PA candidate training program in 2019, where I spent 6 months learning all the nuts and bolts, things that I should have known before I ran the first time. And I, got to join the sisterhood of amazing women from all over the Commonwealth who were there for the same reasons that I was there. And that ultimately led me to running for this seat. So I have a million reasons why I'm running for state senate. Those just became a lot clearer this weekend with the passing of Justice Ginsburg, which I think hit a lot of us really deeply in our souls. Those of us who look up to her as a feminist icon and just role model, it stung. It stung a lot. And I remember staring into the abyss for a while Friday night. I don't want to talk. I just needed to process. And then I remember going upstairs and telling my husband, this feels awful, but I'm really glad we don't have a daughter right now, which is really tough. But, there's so much at stake anyway. 2020 has been this insane year. It feels like we're all exhausted from just a crazy 4 years in general, but so much is on the line. And so the importance of state legislative races, I think, is clearer now than ever. If we want to prevent bad laws from making their way to the Supreme Court, we need to prevent bad laws from being passed. And that means we need to have more balance and more sanity in our state legislature. And, I'm just doubling down on my commitment to fighting for this seat.
I just wanted to thank you for what you did this weekend. Like you said, we all needed a shoulder to cry on. I felt lost. somebody mentioned on Facebook that it felt like an actual family member. And I think you or someone said that, and it did truly feel like that. It's not just a loss to us grown women, but it's for the young generation who did not get a chance to know Ruth or hear about her, because unfortunately it is not part of our curriculums. And you're a teacher, you know, unless you there's so many good teachers that do talk about women that had a huge effect on our life. And I just want to thank you on every woman here in Pennsylvania's behalf for doing what you did. You don't even know how important that was for us, even to just stand and feel that unity for a minute. um, we have to keep her memory alive. We have to, and I just had a quote, one of the quotes from her, that women belong in all places where decisions are being made. And this year is not like any other election year. It is, I repeat this all the time. We have to vote like our life depend on it, because it does, and it truly does, and especially now after the passing of RBG. With that being said, you mentioned something earlier, and I want you to clarify it. When we talk about gun violence and having more gun control, a lot of people from the opposition side are using this to scare people and put fear in saying that, oh, they're going to take your gun away. And I know, people need to understand no one can change the Constitution, the Second Amendment. Just I come today and say, you know what, give me all your guns. That's not how it works. And that's not what we mean by saying gun control. Can you expand on that a little?
Yeah, so this is in my years of volunteering with Moms Demand Action, the thing that I hear most. People will get on social media and they will just lie and attack, and oh, you want to, like, I don't particularly enjoy guns that much. I certainly don't want to take your guns away because I don't really want to have them. But at the same time, I have grown up in Pennsylvania. I have lived in rural areas my entire life. I taught in Cameron County for a long time, which is one of the most sparsely populated counties in all of Pennsylvania. I know how important hunting and shooting for sport is to the culture in this state. And I'm not trying to change that at all. I also know that the majority of gun owners are incredibly careful and responsible people. And so no one is trying to infringe on that. What I want to do, and what I think a lot of folks want to do, is ensure that we are keeping people safe. Just this weekend, a teenager in York County was accidentally shot and killed by his friends because they were handling a weapon that they didn't realize was loaded. That is a completely preventable death. Not only is this child's family grieving, but those friends are never going to be able to forgive themselves for that. And they didn't do it on purpose. But this is preventable. We should be talking about safe storage. We should be talking about how we can try and reduce suicide by gun in this state. And I think those are the things. I never say gun control. I'm not trying to control a gun, right? Gun violence prevention are simple steps we can take. And there should be healthy debate on that, right? Because there are a lot of people who know a lot more than I do about terminology of weapons, or, we're all specialists in our own areas. I know more about education than Mike Regan. He might know more about gun culture than I do. And that's something where you find people who have expertise and you learn from them. We don't have a whole lot of that happening right now. We have a lot of polarization around an issue that shouldn't be political. We should be in the business of keeping people safe. And so, things like background checks, things like waiting periods. I mean, I can't imagine anyone in a situation where you can't wait 24 hours for your gun. Like, unless you're on your way to a competition and your bag got lost at the airport, like, okay, maybe we make exceptions. But it's baffling to me. The things that I and moms are fighting for are things that are going to help prevent suicide and accidental shootings. We have been mostly in our homes for the last couple of months. Mm-hmm. So we haven't seen school shootings in the news because no one was in school.
Yeah.
But the only reason we haven't seen it in the news is because no one was in school. That's awful. My son is 6, and in kindergarten, in his like second week of school last year, he was supposed to have an active shooter drill. This is horrifying. I remember going through one, and I like to tell this story because I still like shake when I think about it. But this is what we're doing to our schools. I want to say 3rd year teaching, and I was like newly pregnant. We had an active shooter drill on an in-service day. So students were not in school. It was just staff. Small school district in the middle of nowhere. So very tight-knit community. The local law enforcement, everyone knew that we were doing this drill. They kind of walked us through what was going to happen, and we were going to hear gunshots. We were supposed to act like we were having a real crisis. And our high school gym was also under construction at the time. So a contractor dropped something on the floor. A teacher thought that was the start of the drill, called 911. Complete panic breaks out because the first responders knew that we hadn't started yet. So there's a time where we're all freaking out because no one knows what's happening. And it was horrifying. They get that figured out, and then they made us go through the drill anyway. There are cops shooting blanks in the hallway of my elementary school, rattling the handles and banging on the doors. And even though you know it's not real, when you can't get through to 911 because the lines are jammed and you're huddled in the corner of your office under your desk, it doesn't feel like a drill. And we're traumatizing kids. There are places who have these drills with children in school. This is not right. It's not normal, and we shouldn't be doing that. You know, it's so much easier to try and, you know, hire more counselors. Let's get these kids what they need so that we're not in these crisis situations. You know, not every mass shooting is because of a mental health crisis, but we just keep, you know, let's just not talk about it. Let's just not talk about it. I'm sick of seeing it. And when I was a teacher, I'm sick of being afraid. You know, our kids shouldn't have to be scared. My principal used to tell me he would get in before anyone else in the morning so he could walk the perimeter of the school just to check, just to make sure everything was okay. And I remember being a kid and being excited to go to school, not being scared that maybe I wouldn't make it home that day. And it just, you know, no other nation on earth puts their kids and their teachers through this. And I just feel like, I don't want to take your guns, but why aren't we working together to try and solve this problem? It just doesn't make sense to me. So, you know, I don't hide from my involvement with moms. I'm very proud of my involvement with moms. I think this organization is doing a lot of good. And, you know, we need to come to the table. We need to talk more together about what we can do that is not controversial. And it just shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah. Safety. Like you said, I think the key word here is safety, and also our kids need to be in school so they can learn in a safe environment and without them thinking of something that is not relevant to their age.
Exactly.
Fun, playing, and all of the above. So to make it clear for everyone out there, safety is different than taking anything away from you. That's one thing. The second thing, if someone, like Shanna said, you cannot wait 24 hours for a criminal background check, that's mean you have an active plan of some sort. And to protect you, even if you're suicidal, maybe just giving you that time to think, it will allow you to rethink your life decisions and maybe save someone's life. And that's the whole purpose of us doing this.
Right.
That's one of the issues. You are a teacher and you're a mom and a working mom.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our listeners can relate to this. This election is important, like we keep saying and repeating, but what do you want to see? What do you want to see change for teachers, for moms, for working moms, and in general for everyone in the district that you're running?
Yeah, I want to see a focus on working families, and I don't feel like we've had that. We've had a lot of political football, especially during this pandemic, where I actually left my teaching position to focus full time on this campaign, which is an incredibly difficult decision for me to make. But I know how, I say this to everyone who will listen, it's in my ad. I think about, you know, what I can do for kids who are in my classroom, but I know I can do so much more for them as a senator who's going to fight for equitable funding for our schools so that kids in the suburbs and kids in the city have an equal opportunity for an excellent education. And unfortunately, that's not happening. To finally get some relief for property taxes for our seniors, I'm so tired of hearing these incumbents talk about how they're going to fix property taxes, but then they don't fund our schools. Why do you think your taxes keep going up? Because your schools don't have enough money to maintain staffing, for supplies, for technology. The world is changing so quickly. We're asking our teachers to, I know last year I spent over $2,000 of my own money just on supplies and storage and things to make my classroom a livable, workable space. And it was tough for our family. But there are teachers who can't do that. Most teachers can't do that. Teachers don't get paid that much. And that's public education. I know people say you can't solve all problems by throwing money at them. You're right, but we can be a lot more strategic about the way that we are using the money that we have. And there are districts who have a lot, but there are a lot of districts who have close to nothing. And it's just not okay that we are neglecting our kids like this. Cyber charter funding is a huge problem, especially this year with so many kids. And honestly, I know districts are offering virtual learning. I understand why parents wanted to go with that model because we're all afraid. My son is in first grade. Our school district went back full-time 5 days a week for elementary students. Middle and high school are not full-time. They're like hybrid. But he was in school for 7 school days before he got a cold. He's COVID negative, but we had to take him to get a test because you can't just have a cold now without, and I'm glad that we got him tested, but I understand why parents are keeping their kids home. If that was an option for us, we probably would have done that. But what that means is all of these students who are leaving to go to cyber charters, their tax dollars go with them. Cyber charters don't have to maintain a brick and mortar school, but they're taking the same amount of money. So this year, our school districts were level funded. That's helpful. But next year, if those kids don't come back, our districts are in crisis mode. They're already in a crisis. I could tell you most school districts around here do not have enough counselors. They are understaffed, especially in a health crisis like we're in right now. And can you imagine how much worse that's going to get when their funding is not increased next year? And so I'm really worried about that because that impacts everyone. I'm really worried about childcare, about working moms like me, and so many people having somewhere safe and of high quality to be able to send their kids so that they can go back to work. And so many childcare centers are closing because their enrollment is way down. Well, if they can't reopen, we have a real problem on our hands. We can't expect people to be in the workforce if there's no one to take care of their children. So, I'm laser focused on how we can help working people not only weather this crisis, but look, let's be honest, a lot of us were in crisis mode already between not being able to afford healthcare, our student loan debt. I mean, most of us millennials, I'm a millennial, and housing, healthcare, and education are 5 times the cost they were for our parents. We were already living through a crisis before COVID. And so, I'm just so focused on solving problems for working families. And I'm really frustrated that that's not happening right now.
And it's a huge issue when your base rate cannot cover your expenses. And I know a lot of people. I work with the homeless coalition volunteer, and I ask a lot of people to go and check those shelter yourself. We have a stigma that homelessness and homeless people are lazy ones, but we are all on the verge of being homeless because we are making a small amount of hourly rate, and we are expected to pay for childcare because if you don't have safe childcare, you cannot go to work. At the same time, you pay for housing. If you get sick, the co-payment can bankrupt you. So those are all issues that we should all care about, and we can't just wait until it affects us personally. And that's what community mean. We have to look and see our neighbor, friend who are struggling and try to figure out what. And that's what Shanna's doing right now. That's what you're doing. You are trying to solve a problem in your community, problem that you faced because you don't want somebody else to go through. I'm going to just ask you one question. Another fear tactic that the opponent are using is taxing. I know we cannot say this enough. Biden keep repeating that you are not going to get taxed if you're making more than $400,000. And that's a large amount for someone who's making that. They should be able to afford paying their taxes, which we're doing the opposite now. We're taxing the poor, the people that make the bare minimum, like you and I and all our listeners. So that misconceptions about Biden and the Democrat are going to raise your taxes. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, and I think they do this all the time, right? This is not new. The difference is, I feel like we all pay taxes because that's the price you pay for living in a society, right? The difference is, if we're going to pay taxes, shouldn't that money go to benefit us and not go to handouts for corporations? And the problem, especially in Pennsylvania, we've got this tax structure that is just completely bonkers, and we have this flat tax. So in theory, people who are making less money are actually paying a higher percentage of their income in taxes because they have to spend everything they get in order to survive. They're paying their bills, they're buying food. They don't have all this money stashed away in savings accounts. And I always laugh at this because I feel like it's such a strong misconception, this tax question. I'm never going to make that much money. This isn't going to impact me, right? And honestly, it's not going to impact most people, but somehow they still feel like, well, you worked for that money. So, and yeah, if you work hard, you should absolutely get to reap the rewards of that, right? But when you look at the inequity and, the 0.1%, like just ridiculously tiny segment of people who have all of the wealth while the rest of us are fighting over crumbs, like it's not right. So I'm a supporter of the We the People PA campaign put forward by the Budget and Policy Center, which I'm sure you probably heard of before, but a big part of that platform is this fair share tax plan, which would actually separate out in Pennsylvania, because our tax code is written into the Constitution. So it's not easy to just change that. But what this would do is it would separate tax from income, or I'm sorry, taxing your income versus your wealth. So adding, for folks who have, hedge funds and just all kind wealth, that would be taxed at a slightly different rate, and it would actually lower the personal income tax for almost everyone. And to me, that just makes more sense. It's not like I'm saying if you are successful and you've worked hard, you should have nothing. That doesn't make any sense, right? But it should at least be in proportion, because we are depriving our kids of a quality education. We can't afford our healthcare. We can't pay our property taxes. We're struggling as working people. And there are folks who could be doing their fair share. I think all we want is a level playing field, right? And I don't know, again, it's going to impact such a small percentage of people, but those people can afford lobbyists. And so that's why we're stuck. We're all fighting amongst ourselves. The have-nots turn against each other instead of maybe focusing our energy on, but they could help out a little. Again, we're not trying to bankrupt anyone, but you could help out a little. You want to live as part of society, you need to participate fairly in that society.
And I think all our listeners and everyone, thank you for listening, first of all, everyone out there. And, here you have it. There is no such a thing as it will going to increase your taxes. Paying tax, I pay my taxes and happily doing my share. I have a business and I am fortunate to have enough, and I don't mind sharing it with everyone who is less fortunate than I am. But that doesn't mean you are going to be forced, like Shanna said. So that's another thing. Relax, people. There is no Democrat are not coming to take your guns or coming to take your money or anything. It is just a fear tactic that we all have to sit down, address, and learn. And that's why we are bringing the candidates here, so you can hear from them, so you can get to know them and know their campaign. And this year, especially, Shanna, there is no straight one-way ticket, right?
Correct.
So basically what people need to know.
Yeah, which honestly, I know a lot of people have a lot of feelings on that. I kind of enjoy this because I think that it's going to have people are going to have to spend a little more time. Even if they still don't know and they go in and they're still looking for the letter, you have to spend more time being discerning. And I've talked to a lot of people who tell me they're voting for Trump, but they're voting for me, which is interesting. But it's because you can connect with folks on local issues. Like I had a woman last week, we were talking about, local school district concerns, and she was worried about the curriculum, and she was worried about, being a working class person, and we could talk through things like that. And sometimes it's just taking that extra time to do a little bit of research, and you find that maybe you're a registered independent or a Republican, but you might actually stand to gain more from a Senator Danielson than what we have right now.
Yeah, and that will make a huge difference. And I had Daniel Smith last Friday, who was Republican, and he's running for his local, and he's focused on fixing the issues for the local, and that's what we need to focus on. Presidential election is important, but you have to look at what is your local level. You don't have to be a registered Democrat or Republican to learn about what Shanna is going to bring to your district. You can learn about that and decide. And like she said, you could, if you are set to vote for Trump, that's your choice. But learn about what affect choosing a Senate, choosing a House representative. That is going to make a huge difference. And look, what is the current person is doing? If he's not doing squat.
Or not doing, yeah.
Not doing. I live in the area, and I know that.
Yeah.
And so for everyone listening there, this is not a straight one ticket. It's not like before. You have to vote Democrat down and all the way from the president to your local officials. You can read, learn about Shanna. I already posted her page on the top of this video. I'm going to post it at the end of the video also, and we will be sharing. What you need to do is go learn about what she stands for, her campaign. And this year, it is not your traditional voting. So what do they need to do to help your campaign?
Sure. So we have vote by mail in Pennsylvania now. No excuse vote by mail, which a lot of people took advantage of in the primary. I know there are a lot of people registered to do that again. There were some legal issues, but the ballots should be certified and being printed soon. So those will start arriving in mailboxes within the next week or so, which means get out the vote starts now, right? We want to talk to as many people as possible to let them know that they have a choice this year, that they can elect a young working mom who understands what it's like to not be able to afford healthcare. I just watched my dad go through cancer treatments, and I've seen how the expense of that, I mean, on top of the complete physical drain of having to recover from something like that, is just debilitating. We need more women. Pennsylvania is not the beacon of hope for women in elected office. And quite frankly, it's not enough to just have women. We need good women who are going to pass good legislation. We need more teachers in government who can actually help us solve this crisis of education funding and honestly, everything else. It's not just funding. I think we have a real opportunity this year. I'm excited for people to get involved, to learn more about our campaign, to help us write postcards, make phone calls, send text messages, just talk to your neighbor. Maybe your neighbor has a Trump sign in their yard, but that doesn't mean that you can't still have a conversation with them about why you're supporting me for Senate or, your favorite state house candidate. A lot of folks just don't know enough about local candidates, especially now. It's so hard to we're not knocking doors the way we would be. And so it's a lot more difficult to make sure that you're getting your message out there. But we are working every day of the week, all waking hours to reach as many folks as possible so they know they have options, and to just have a chance to get to know the candidates better. We're always looking for folks to help us out in those efforts.
And there is phone banking, and all do that. I will also post the link. I did post some yesterday, and I'll post again. You can do texting. You can send postcard, which I did my share. I send yours out. I hope.
Thank you.
You can also put your sign outside. Just hammering those names in people's head it makes a huge difference.
Especially around here. I know this area it feels like we've been drowning in Trump signs for 4 years, right? But we are not in this tiny little minority like we think we are here. And, it's so encouraging to see how many people do have signs out, and they're getting spray painted, they're getting ripped, they're being stolen, and we're just replacing them. We're putting them right back up because we have every right to display our preference just like everyone else. And I'm hopeful that behavior will stop, because we need to respect each other. I can't help but notice that I may be a little frustrated when I drive down the street and see Trump signs, but I don't get out of my car and steal it. You keep going. And I'm hoping that people will start to do that as well. But, put it out there in your yard. Let people know that you're not afraid. The opposition is certainly not afraid to let people know how they feel. And, we need to stand strong also.
And they will do that. I'm not sure, Shanna, if you saw my video, they came on and stomped on my signs, including yours. And the Biden got the worst, but it was a strong because it's plastic. So they tried to rip that. All we did is we put more light, turned on my camera, and I moved the signs closer to my house. That's another safety that you can do. I moved them close to my house. I stapled those signs. I drove down to Harrisburg and got more signs and put them right back. So those things will happen. And I shared, you have to call your local. I called the Hamden Township, reported that, and surprisingly, they said not a lot of people to report. They know that a lot of people face this crime, and this is a crime.
Right.
But after I did this and I shared it into my neighborhood next door, that app, so many people responded and put their Biden sign out. Which now, I used to feel like I live in Trump lane. Now I smile, clap every time I'm driving. And you don't even know what this will do. So display your sign, proudly and donate. That's what Shanna didn't say to you all. Anything matter. There is 43 days left. And I know it's hard to talk about money, but this is unconditional time. This time is not your normal campaigning. So they do need the help. They need the stamps. They need money for, campaigning, mailing things.
Yep.
And they need volunteers to go around and put those signs. Some person put your sign maybe 4 weeks ago at my front door. I was so happy, and I just put it there. And so do that. Volunteer, do something. There's 43 days, but there are very critical 43 days left. Am I counting right, or?
I think you're right. Yeah.
So that's what we need to be doing, pushing more votes. Talk to your neighbors, like she said, your friends. Some people don't even know how to register to vote. We still have time to do that. So encourage people to vote. And if they 100%, you can't persuade them to vote for the president, then talk to them about the offices. Like, talk to them to vote for Shanna, vote for Nicole Miller if you're here in our area. Vote for the names, the other names. If you just Joe Biden doesn't do it for you, or Trump doesn't do it for you, that's not it. That's not the end of the story. We need to do that.
Absolutely. And I know there are a lot of people who say, Joe, I'm not excited. Joe Biden was not my choice in the primary. Most of my friends, I don't think Joe Biden was their choice in the primary. But especially after this weekend, I think there cannot be any question the importance of voting. Pennsylvania Trump won by 44,000 votes last time. We cannot let that happen again, because too much is at stake. I can't look at my son knowing that I didn't do absolutely everything I could. And as a candidate, I'm obviously campaigning for myself because, I want to fix things in Harrisburg. Like, I'm going to let Eugene deal with all that madness down in DC, but I'm going to try really hard to get him there. And so we're coordinating with state house candidates, with Eugene's campaign, with the Biden efforts here in Cumberland and York counties, because we know how important it is. Every single vote matters. Don't ever, ever, ever be convinced that your vote doesn't matter. because it absolutely does. I just convinced my mom the other day, I don't know if she might yell at me for saying this, but that, you don't like Biden, that's fine. I don't really like Biden either, but I'm voting for Biden because I know how important it is. I'm voting for Kamala Harris. Like, my vote for Biden is for Kamala.
And this is not the time to stand this one out. Think about what you are going to lose, even if Biden is not your first choice. Still, think about, do you want 4 more years of this, or do you want someone that you can reason with? And on top of that, if you vote Eugene DeBesquerel, if you vote Georgia Scott, if you vote Nicole Miller, if you vote Shanna, if you vote all the names that we brought here, Brittany, Rodas, if you vote for Janet Diaz, all those names, how many strong, powerful people are going to be there, making sure that your voice is heard, and making sure that even if you're about the president, that he is going to do what is good for everyone. So this is not time to sit this one out.
Absolutely.
I saw someone earlier posting that it will be a crime it should be a crime to do a third party this election. And I love, I mean, it's not, we can't say it's a crime, but seriously, no third parties. I love you all, my friends who are Green Party, a Bernie supporter. I was for Bernie, but you know what? Bernie and myself were all for Biden right now. So you know what? Cry later, okay? Now it's time to work, especially after Ruth RG, may she rest in power, passed, and this is not time for us to sit and moan and cry for who coulda, woulda been our next president. Work hard for the next 4 years. Work hard to elect Shanna, and everyone is going to make a difference. And then work from inside and correct this. So let's get back to your campaign. I know we talked a lot about all the issues that are happening in the world, and we can sit here for hours to do that. But what else? What matters to you in your campaign that people need to know about?
Yeah. So I think it's just really been, it's kind of eye-opening, all the phone calls that we make, all the voters that we talk to who can kind of relate to, the reasons that pushed me to run. When I was a teenager, my dad lost his job. This company that he had dedicated his entire career to, worked his way up the ladder, did absolutely everything you're supposed to do to achieve that American dream. And then they closed their doors overnight and we lost it all anyway. And so, I think a lot of people are really tuned into this could happen to any of us. And so I really want to focus on these issues of working families, of working people. I want to focus on what we can do to make sure that our kids don't have to deal with the things that I had to deal with as a kid. I know what it's like to not have health insurance. I know how important it was for me to have access to Planned Parenthood when I was a 17-year-old who thought that I had cancer. And if I wouldn't have been able to get that screening, that was really scary because we didn't have health insurance because my dad had just lost his job. So if I wouldn't have had that, I just think about how much of my life would be so different. I want to fight so that people don't have to be saddled with student debt like I am. Everything that pushed me to run is just my own lived experiences. I'm not doing this to carry a flag for, any certain cause or I'm not running to be like a poster child for the Democratic Party, because I think the Democratic Party has a lot of work to do to actually center working people. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I know the struggles that I've lived. I know the struggles that I've seen my students live, and I know that we deserve so much better than what we're getting. And even when I'm talking with Republicans, people who have voted for my opponent in the past, I'm telling them, don't you think you deserve better constituent services? I know, and I may have mentioned this before, when I called Mike Regan's office 3 years ago about the bill that would have allowed teachers to carry guns in school, his staffer yelled at me on the phone that if I didn't support that bill, I didn't care about kids. And that's crazy. Last year, I spent about 7 weeks trying to get a meeting with his office to talk to him about why I thought it was time for us to raise the minimum wage, And for 7 weeks, crickets. It's convenient how when you have a differing opinion, you just don't get the airtime. You don't even get a chance to talk to your elected officials. And that's not how this should work. We live in a purple district. We live in a district that is not overwhelmingly one or another. This district voted for Governor Wolf in 2018. That's a huge change for this area. Our region is rapidly changing. Our population is exploding, and we need to have representation that will listen to people and take their concerns to heart. I know as an elected official, I'm going to have people caring loudly at me through the phone a lot. And they're probably not going to agree with me sometimes. And you know what? It's my job to listen to them anyway and to take those concerns very seriously when I go to vote. I don't want to be a rubber stamp for anyone's agenda. I want to fight like crazy to do what's right for people. And I just don't think that that's what we have right now. If I felt confident in our current senator's ability to do that, I wouldn't be running.
Yeah.
But we saw a lot of candidates running in contested primaries in this region in South Central Pennsylvania this year, because we are all just, we've reached the end of our patience. I think we deserve so much better, and we're only going to get it if we fight for it. And so that's what I intend to do.
And I think that should be everyone's concern. If you cannot reach your official until it's time for voting, and then they come out and talk to you about what are they going to do. And that's the difference between a public servant, someone who knows that they're there to serve Republican, Democrats, women, men, doesn't matter what is your race, your sexual identity. That's not what matters. You're there to represent all of those people without any prejudice. And that's the difference between a politician who just will say what you want them to say and what you want to hear, and just say it once every 2 years. And I think that's the difference between you and the current representative. And people know that and feel that. But also they want to know that, is Shanna just another person who's talking the talk and not walking the walk? How, what makes you different than the person before you?
We make calls. I personally make calls every day to people in this district to hear what they have to say. I made 5 calls before this day and had really good conversations. I tried to find out how to help someone get their unemployment expedited. I talked to a gentleman who didn't agree with me on all fronts, but we had a good conversation, and he actually donated to my campaign 20 minutes after our call. Like, I do that work. Actually, when I'm elected as a senator, I want to keep doing that, because that's how, I can't believe how many folks live here and don't even know who Mike Regan is or what his office is. People get really confused when I call. I'm like, hey, I'm running for state senate. And they're like, oh, like against Scott Perry? And I'm like, no. Oh, against Cheryl DeLorean? No. Like, he's just this missing tier. People don't know who he is, because what he does is he shows up for photo ops and then leaves. And I don't want that. I want to be involved in our community even more than I am now. And I've been doing this work for years. Since we've been here, I've been active with Moms Demand Action. I've spoken at rallies at the Capitol. I've done legislative visits. I've been active with Indivisible. I'm a committee person in the York County Democratic Party. I'm on the state committee. Like, I have these connections because I know how important this work is. And it only, it gets harder when you're elected, right? Running a campaign is an immense amount of work. It's enjoyable. It's incredibly stressful, but it's so worth it, because the connections you make with people, the hope that people feel when they think that they might actually be represented by someone who cares about them. It's like, it shouldn't be this novel concept. Like, that's just how it should be. And I want to keep doing that. I want to keep making constituent calls. I want to put time on my calendar when I'm a senator to just call voters. Just call them. Hey, how's it going? Like, what can I do? What do you need? What does your community need? I want to have town halls when it's safe to do so, which hopefully will be soon. I want to be out in the community, not just for a ribbon cutting or a bridge renaming ceremony, but like doing the work. I want to be volunteering at the food bank. I want to be at your back to school night, talking to you, seeing what it is that you need. And we don't have that right now.
And I don't think you want to hear anything after this. This is it. To me, this is goals. And I can attest to that. I've seen you in action. You are out there standing and talking and giving your time. And I know having a kid is not an easy thing to do, but you're a teacher, you're a mom, a working mom, okay, and you're a strong leader. And just listening to you, I think everyone out there should have a feel about what you can do and the sincerity. You know, a lot of people might sit and say, but you can tell. I mean, people can tell. Listening to someone and seeing them in action, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And truly, everyone, we need fresh eyes, fresh minds. We need someone who is actually going to do something. And I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when you get elected. I know that Shanna will be doing everything that she said and more. And this is, you know, the time for you to not just go and talk to her, but go read about her and see what she have done so far. And like she said, look at who was taking her the spot that she's gonna fill soon, who was there and what did they do. And if you did not hear their name and you did not hear their name in a positive way, then they were just there. Then they need to go. Simple. I think that should sum up everything. But things are not that easy. And like you said, a lot of people don't know who are their representatives. So you know, you being out there, it's helping. If you have, like, say, the next 10 minutes to sum up what people, I know there is a lot of people that just joined us, and when we finish, they will be, you guys will be able to go back and hear from the beginning. But for everyone that just joined us, if you can tell us the main point when we hear Shanna's name, what do you want to know and why we should vote for her?
Yeah, so I just want people to know that I'm just a real, hardworking, normal human, like most of us, right? I have not been groomed for politics. This wasn't something in my family. I'm not running for office to build my resume. You know, I'm a teacher. And like my video says, everything about my upbringing, everything about my background says just stay in your classroom, just, you know, live the life that you were scripted to live. But it's not working for most people. And I don't want to wait for some savior to come and fix it, because I think we all have realized that's not going to happen. No one's going to come save us. We have to fight for what we need. And, you know, in my eyes, that's an agenda that works for working people. That's Pennsylvania, where we don't have to worry that if we get sick, we're going to lose our house because we won't be able to afford to pay our bills. We shouldn't have to be worried about sending our kids to school. We shouldn't have to be worried about them not getting the education they deserve because of where we live. We shouldn't have to worry about so many things, about not making, you know, enough money to feed our families, about not being able to afford an apartment. Nowhere in the country can you afford a 2-bedroom apartment on minimum wage. You know, we're not focusing on solving problems that working people really need us to solve. And that's why I'm running. You know, it's not easy. It's not glamorous. It's exhausting and it's tiring and sometimes it's frustrating, but it just motivates me more on those days because I know I'm in a position where I can change people's lives. Again, I say this all the time. I know the impact I had on my students in the classroom. I like teaching. I like teaching kids music. But I saw throughout my career, which started right after the financial crisis of 2008, that our kids are suffering when they don't get what they need at school. And that's what really motivated me to get involved in politics to begin with. But then as a mom, you know, everything's just so much more personal. Everyone deserves to be able to afford quality childcare. Everyone deserves to be able to be alive without worry. You know, if you're sick, you should be able to go to the doctor. These aren't like novel concepts, right? This is just basic human decency. And I just want to go and fight for people. That's all I want to do. And we need more women. We need more working people. We need more teachers and we need more moms. Because if you learn one thing as a parent, it's that no one knows how to multitask and get stuff done like a mom. And you know, we need more of that hustle in state government. We really do. And I'm really hoping that the voters give me an opportunity to serve them, because I know that they won't regret it, because I will not rest until I have, you know, made a positive impact for my.
And we can, like I said, I can't say this enough. We can hear the sincerity in your voice and in your action. And what are the main goals for your campaign? I know we did talk about safety, gun safety, and education. Uh, Maybe you want to mention those one
Yeah,
more
sure.
time.
Yep. So the four main pillars, the things that really like drive my focus, of course, public education, fixing our funding formula and making sure our kids are getting what they need. The environment, South Central Pennsylvania is notoriously terrible air quality. You know, we need to fix this. The climate crisis, our country is burning right now. You know, we're seeing a more active hurricane season than we've seen in 20 years. We need to be doing so much more to combat climate change. I'm running on the idea that we should all be able to afford our health care and that we should all have health care, and really just cleaning up our government. 2020 elections are going to be where we decide who's in office when we redraw our legislative maps. And we know how gerrymandered our districts are, where representatives are picking their constituents instead of constituent representatives. We have very little campaign finance law in Pennsylvania. So my opponent can take hundreds of thousands of dollars from corporations and fossil fuel industry. And then who do you think he's serving when he's in Harrisburg? You know, there's so much work to do to make people feel like they can trust their government again. And so like those are really important. Gun violence prevention, of course, falls under that umbrella as well of, you know, government that actually works to keep people safe. There was a state representative a few weeks ago who said in talking about all of the COVID response that it's not the government's job to keep people safe. And I thought, then why the hell are you there?
Yeah,
You know?
seriously.
So, you know, and government can't solve every problem, right? Nothing can solve every problem, but our job is to work to try and find solutions. And, you know, those are the big things. I care a lot about criminal justice reform. I want to make sure that we aren't sentencing people to spend their entire lives in prison. If there's a chance for rehabilitation, we should be focusing on so many issues that just don't get, you know, the light of day. And it's because the agenda of the people in power is not an agenda for working people. It's an agenda for corporations and for lining their own pockets. And I'm sick of it. And I think a lot of us are sick of the corruption, and we deserve better.
And that's again another difference when you vote for someone who is funding their campaign by, you know, contribution from voters, from, you know, their own pocket sometimes, and their friends and family. When you have that person who had the ethics, the value, who will not be bought, you know, and you have someone who is funded by big corporations. So, like Shanna said, their interest will be meeting the interest and the needs for the people who are funding them, giving them money. And that will bring us again to helping in Shanna's campaign by not just volunteering and donating. And it's easy. You just click that link and the Act Blue, and you put your information, your card. You can do a weekly one, which we only have like 43 days. So whatever you can do, just do that to help out, and make sure you talk to your friends, your neighbor, your family. If you don't live in this district, and some of the listeners live in different districts, talk to someone who live in this district if you know someone. If you don't know them, share it on your page, right, Shanna?
That's, you know, it works. We have donations from all across the country. We have, I'm just looking because I keep a running tab up here on my calendar, almost 1,500 unique contributors from all over the country, because people recognize the importance. We need to flip the Pennsylvania State Senate to be able to move an agenda for working people. And we need at least 4 seats to do that, but preferably 5 so that we have a true majority. And this is that 5th seat. We have a real chance to flip this, and we need to flip this if we're going to make real change. So we're incredibly excited. Like I said, over almost 1,500 unique donors, over 2,300 contributions. People are excited about this race from all over. Actually, just this weekend with the passing of Justice Ginsburg, we have seen just the surge in people supporting progressive female candidates, I ran out of envelopes for my thank you cards. People who know me and they know my campaign know that I handwrite a thank you card to anyone who donates $15 or more. And I have this whole stack that I still have. Yeah, see? And I have all of these that I still have to write just to get caught up from the weekend. And, you know, donations come in and I write the card because I want people to know how incredibly honored I am to have their support. It's not easy to just go out and have some corporation write me a check for $20,000. We are working for every donation we receive, and it is so personal and appreciated by me. And I want people to know that. So I take the time to write the note.
And it is appreciated. I keep it by my office, and if you don't get that thank you, just know it is not because you're not appreciated. The mail is very jammed now. And I have to clear it. And I think that one thing we need to mention before we end, that if you are doing the mailing ballot or voting by mail, please take your form to your courthouse. And I think here in our county, you can take it to the one court in Carlisle.
Yep.
House. I posted the list of places to different counties, but search where you can drop it in person. Do they need an ID to drop that?
Nope.
Okay.
But you can only drop your own ballot. You cannot take someone else's ballot, and those drop boxes will be watched. So we're really encouraging people to be honest. Just take yours. I might hand deliver mine, but also they should be coming out in the next week or so. So the trick here is when you get your ballot, fill it out and mail it back right away if you can't take it there in person, just to make sure. Now, the court decision said that any ballot postmarked by Election Day and received by that Friday will be counted. I think we're all prepared. We are not going to have results for a couple of days. It's going to be a really crazy week. But it's just so important that absolutely everyone who is registered to vote or who isn't registered gets registered to vote. Everyone needs to make their voice heard in this election. Our lives are on the line.
So there is no excuse. I'm voting in person because I'm paranoid. I want to know that, okay, my vote is there. But for everyone out there who's like me that want to make sure and they're so enthusiastic, if you send it by mail, there is a way to track it, and always go to votespa.com, right? Or there's okay.
Yep. And if you're really concerned, you can call your county board of elections as well. But you should get an email as soon as it's received.
Okay. You should get an email if you send it by mail. There is the absentee ballot. You have at least 7 days. Please send it right away. If you don't, you have to send it at least 7 days prior to November 3rd. If you're like me and you want to vote by mail, but you want to make sure, drive in person and put it there. Take it to your local offices and put it there. Make sure you're helping the mailman and woman out too,
right? Because
it's going to be jammed. Everyone might be sending their mailing, and we want to make sure your voice is heard and your vote is counted. In person, mail it, fill the mailing ballot, and take it, drop it. So there is no excuse, everyone out there.
And lots of options.
For Shanna. Remember? So before we end, Shanna, I just want to thank you very much. I know you're a busy woman and you're out there and you have something tonight at 8 also.
Oh, 3 things tonight. I am triple booked.
Goodness. And she still give us time. So you know that she will give you time when she's elected. And when she's elected, she will be doing what she promised to do. I know that because, again, she's a teacher, she's a mom, she has a proven record of doing the things that she promised to do. And again, 2 years. If she did not do what she promised you, vote her out. Simple. Yeah. So vote her in now and make sure that she will do what she promised to do. And before we go, what would you like to say to our listeners and your voters?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, to have a real conversation about why I'm running, why it's so important that we change things up in Harrisburg, and I hope that folks will reach out if they have questions. I love answering emails, taking phone calls, Facebook messages, any means of communication. But I want to answer your questions. I want you to trust that when you cast your ballot for Danielson for state senate, that you don't have any reservations about it. So I hope folks will reach out, and thank you so much again for having me on.
Thank you very much, Shanna, and we will be behind you every step of the way. And everyone out there, we appreciate you. We thank you for joining us and listening, and we thank you in advance for voting this election and voting Shanna and everyone down the list. We brought so many amazing, strong leaders and strong women this year. You got the chance to sit down, listen to them, and why they're running, and what is their campaign is all about. Now it's your chance to go read about them, volunteer, donate, do what you can to support them and make sure that they are there to fight for us. And until we see you next time, please go to Shanna website. I posted that it's Danielson
Shanna4PA.org.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shanna, and you have a good evening.
Thank you so much.